Welcome back to the Today Show. On the show today we have...
Give me some space out there.
Oh, sorry. Welcome back to the Today Show. On the show today we have the CEO from Wellbeings. We have Peggy DeGroot and Shepherd. That's great. Peggy, I just want to, we're talking off the air and I want to hear your story. Let's hear your story, how this all became about.
Okay. I was involved in helping a cousin of mine who had special needs to be able to live on his own. And I went to seek some help from someone to ask questions. And as a result of that luncheon that I took this lawyer to, I was able to, I spent all afternoon with him. And at the end, I said to him, this was much more than a lunch date. I mean, I spent the last 4 hours with you. I must owe you a bill. And he said, what I'd like you to do is put that money that you think you would have paid me toward all your volunteer work. I've been an avid volunteer over the last, I can't tell you, many decades, I'll just say, in Burlington as well. I started volunteering when I was 12.
Nice.
And so he then challenged me to go and volunteer somewhere where I never would have volunteered before.
Wow, that's a great challenge.
It is. And as a result of that, the geriatrician that I was working with, I spoke to him because I knew that he had worked at a methadone clinic. And so I spoke to him and I thought, well, I probably wouldn't work with people who had drug use problems. So that would be definitely fitting into the section where I wouldn't have normally volunteered. And I developed with him a self-esteem program. And we were going to run a contest for self-esteem, and we were going to have t-shirts that were made available and try and promote and increase people's self-esteem.
Okay.
And as a former teacher, I thought that's something that I'm very, very comfortable in doing. So we developed the program, and as a result of that, we produced these wonderful t-shirts. And that should have been the end of it.
Okay.
Except there was one situation that changed my life forever when I was
Ooh,
there.
here we go, here we go. The cliffhanger.
This was not at Wellbeings.
No.
I was doing something that was going to start and stop and be finished. However, I think God had another plan. And as a result of that day, it changed my life forever.
Wow.
There was a gentleman who came in to be seen by the doctor at the addiction clinic, and he'd evidently, it appeared to me, he'd been in a fight because he had a knife wound up his arm.
Okay.
That was bleeding, and he had it wrapped and he needed to have it fixed. And this doctor immediately pulled out his doctor bag and stitched him up, and that was the beginning of the appointment. And the way that they did things at that clinic, it was a little different than what we do here. However, urine drug screens are a typical method to see what substances may be in someone's body at the time. And the doctor asked the fellow if he had taken any drugs that week. And the reason the doctor asked ahead of time was because the fellow had said to him he wouldn't take drugs that week. He was going to absolutely not take drugs. He was going to follow the doctor's prescription. And in fact, there were a number of substances that were found in his urine. And there was a bit of a kerfuffle back and forth between the two of them. And at one point, the fellow stood up. And he was a large man. I will say he was 6'7" and probably 350 or 400 pounds. He was very large and kind of ominous. And the doctor was no slouch either. He was 6'2", I will say, and 220 pounds. And the men spoke back and forth, and the heat was rising, and I was not near the door. I was in the back behind the desk, and I had been given approval to sit there by the doctor and by the patient as part of this program. And at one point, the doctor told the patient to sit down And he told him how disappointed he was because the fellow had promised that he wasn't going to use street drugs that week. And there were lots of expletives that took place during that meeting as well that I will not repeat here on air. But what ended up happening was the man sat back down and the doctor sat back down. And the doctor said to him, "I'm so disappointed in you. I really believed you when you told me you weren't going to use street drugs this week. And I don't know why you did, because you promised me you wouldn't." And the man started to break down. And he was like a very large man. And I'm sorry, I'm trying not to break down either. But
Good, no.
this man changed my life. The man said, "No one's ever believed in me. My parents didn't believe in me. My teachers didn't believe in me." And he used some expletives again. And he said, "Next week, I won't have any drugs in my system. You wait." And that was the end of that meeting. And the next week when he came, he was drug-free because finally someone believed in him.
Wow.
And I thought, it takes to the age of, I don't know how old this man was, 35 or 38 or 40, I don't know. But I thought, we have a real disengagement here. We need people to know that there's hope, that there's help, and that there's someone who believes in you. So that changed my life 16 years ago.
That's a great story. What a game changer.
It was a game changer. I mean, if you'd asked me, 17 years ago, if I'd be doing this, I would have thought you crazy. But I took one whole year to do my due diligence.
Yeah.
My master's in education was in decision-making modeling. And I looked at what was out there for people who lived in pain, who had addictions, who had mental health challenges. And I came up with this new model. And when I say a new model, it's a Wellbeings model.
Yeah.
There were similar type models out there before, but Halton, we're in Burlington,
Yeah.
so it's part of Halton.
Yeah.
And Halton was one of 4 underserviced areas that was written up in a government proposal
Yeah.
for 2006 called "Every Door is the Right Door."
Wow.
And at that time, Halton was one community that you could get no addiction care in.
Really? Wow.
And so I started in 2009,
Okay.
so nothing had changed in those 3 years.
Yeah.
And that's how I started, because I said, if no one can come in Burlington for help like this,
Yeah.
let's create a safe environment where people can come for help.
That's wonderful.
That would be a place that I'd want to go to if I had to
And
go
this is
to.
your creation. This is wonderful, Peggy. That's so important for the community. And so anybody, you can be an able-bodied,
Yes.
you can be disabled, and you can be a veteran, which I'd like to transition into now.
Okay.
So at the Disability Channel, we created employment programs for persons with disabilities and veterans since 2021, and we're expanding. We just got back from the Invictus Games. We're dealing now with the U.S. Pentagon and some very high military men and women in the United States to duplicate what we're doing in Canada. And here comes Peggy, right? So we are, you know what, hold that thought. I got my producer screaming in my ear. Let's take a quick break, and we come back. We're gonna set up the future. You're watching the Today Show. I'm Jay Stoyan. We'll be right back.